For coming out. Super excited to get this going. Before I get started, by the way, we have people from all over the country that actually flew in. We have people from LA, we have people from Florida. So we've got a really interesting mix of people in the room. Before we kick it off, I do want to give the mic to our host today at the AI House to say a few words. So we have Taylor Soper, Director of Community here at the AI House. So give it up for Taylor.
Thanks, Pablo. Thanks, everyone, for coming out. Welcome to AI House. I'm Taylor Soper, Director of Community and Programming here at AI House. I'm still relatively new to AI House. I've been here for a couple months now. Previously, was at GeekWire for a long time, editor there. So been in the ecosystem for a long time and love events like this and events that we can do together and all the things that Pablo are doing. So great for the ecosystem. So I just wanted to welcome you. I did go to UW. I probably should get some AI House gear, but I did go to UW. Go Dogs. Go Dogs. A little bit of background on AI House. Just want to give you some more information before we kick it off to Pablo and Naveen for this great convo. May have seen our announcement last week. We announced our rebrand, so we are going all in on AI House, on this city, on this ecosystem, on this community that you're a part of. Formerly known as the AI2 Incubator is now the AI House Incubator. We are one of the country's top programs for early stage startups. We invest up to $600,000 in early stage teams as early as a solo founder with just an idea. We work really closely with the teams and founders as they grow and scale. Where you're standing and sitting here now, AI House, we moved in here and set up shop about 18 months ago, so still relatively new. More than 20,000 people have come through the doors, so it's just been an amazing place for community building, people to exchange knowledge, learn new things about AI, keep up with all the models, all the stuff changing. And so we have events here every week, sometimes multiple times a day. Today I think we have 3 events, including this one. So if you want to stay up to date, subscribe to our Luma. You can scan the QR code, get our weekly newsletter every Monday, and see all the events coming up. And none of this would be possible without our unique public-private partnership with the City of Seattle, as well as our partners at JP Morgan, Google Cloud, and our community partner, Ada Developers Academy. Without all these partners, none of this would be possible. Finally, I'm almost done. There's actually a bunch of co-working and offices in the floor below us. And there's a bunch of really cool early-stage startups working out of there, like SageOx, Hirvana. And so if you're interested in the co-working space or office space, we don't run that. It's a company called Waterfront Workspaces. And so if you're interested in working out of AI House, contact Waterfront Workspaces. If you mention AI House, they'll help you out and take care of you. So with that, I want to pass it. And thank you to Pablo for all the things that you guys do. So amazing to see kind of the growth and the journey. I know this is going to be a good conversation with Naveen. So yeah, thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Feels amazing to have so many great people in the room. You know, before we kick it off, I want to get a feel for who is in the room. Especially this will be great for Naveen and Kevin to get an idea. So if you're a founder building a startup, raise your hand. All right, great. If you're an investor looking to fund startups, raise your hand. Incredible. And then if you're a tech executive, raise your hand. All right, yeah, we got a couple. All right, cool. And then if you're not in any of those categories, raise your hand. All right. Who invited you guys? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, it's great to have everybody here. I'm Pablo Casalimas, co-founder and managing partner of OneSixOne Ventures. The way that we got here is we just asked one simple question. 10 years ago, I was a student at University of Florida. I was trying to build my first company. I didn't know what I was doing, and neither did my friends who were trying to build companies. And instead of asking, how do we build a successful company, we asked, how do we help other people build successful companies that are in similar shoes? And we started hosting events for founders to get connected, to learn, to grow. And that started as backyard meetups, college kids eating Domino's pizza, drinking beer. That turned into an accelerator. We helped 40 companies raise $13 million in 2 years. And then we're like, hey, we got to get some equity here. We were doing this like as a passion project. So we went back to the VCs who were funding our deals, and we said, hey, can you guys give us a scout fee for the deals that we source for you? They all said no, surprisingly. So we said, all right, screw this. We're going to launch our own fund. So in 2022, we sold our cars, went all in, launched Fund 1, ended up raising $4.5 million. We've invested in 30 companies, including 20% of those companies are based right here in Seattle. And you know, I came here for the first time 5 years ago and realized this is the cloud capital of the world, number 2 for engineering talent in North America, and it's not even top 5 for VC funding. Huge opportunity. And so today we're on to Fund 2. We're raising that right now. But the key thing that really sets us apart is that we focus on doing one thing better than most funds, which is we host curated events, helping founders meet customers and raise money. And so I'm so glad that you guys got to come out and experience, one of our events. We've done over 75 in 13 cities in the past 12 months and had over 10,000 attendees. But today we have, one of the best speakers, one of the most incredible and dynamic speakers that we've had, the pleasure of having speak at one of our events. So really grateful to have Naveen with us. And just before we start the panel, I do want to call up, these events, they take a lot of work, but they're also very expensive. And, it takes a lot of hands and resources to pull them off. And we couldn't do it without our incredible supporters. So I do want to call up Josh Lilly, who runs Databricks for Startups, and he is our sponsor for today. So yeah.
Awesome. I'm going to keep this super, super quick so we can get to Naveen. First of all, I want to thank Pablo and OneSixOne and Naveen and, of course, AI House for doing this. Quick show of hands. How many people have heard of Databricks? Okay, so majority of you. I think a lot of people think about Databricks in the context of, a big data company and an enterprise company. And what we learned supporting hundreds and hundreds of startups is that one of the biggest problems founders are facing is how to build AI the right way, in a way that actually creates a durable moat for you as a founder and a business going to market. And so we work with founders who are building products with a stitched together version of a bunch of cloud native tools, open source tools. And as that architecture scales, your product doesn't necessarily scale with you. And the most important part of that is how do you actually bring the context, which is data and your customer data and the unique data that makes your product durable and creates a moat. How do you actually build AI on top of that? So that's what we're spending a lot of time thinking about at Databricks. We just launched our new Databricks for Startups program. It's $200,000 of product credit. It's go-to-market support. It's engineering support for qualified startups. So if that sounds interesting, feel free to find me after the talk. But without further ado, I'll turn it back over to Pablo.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Give him a hand. And I also want to thank John Fleming from CIBC Innovation Banking for also supporting the event. So give it up for John, yeah. And with that, I will hand it off. I won't hold you guys any longer. This is what we're here for. So Naveen and Kevin, if you guys could come up, and we'll go ahead and get this show on the road. Give it up for Naveen and Kevin.
Thank you, bro. These founders, how can founders not be in the front chair? What's going on here?
He doesn't bite.
Come on, guys, come on. Are the back guys? Come on, back guys. Come on, guys. Come on here. Leader.
I don't need to do anything. It's a 30-minute keynote. That's all we got today. Of the founders in the room, who here is working on a startup today? Who here is ideating on a startup today? Okay. Always ideating. Naveen, I want to chat and start with a through line that starts with mindset. And a lot of what you talk about is abundance mindset and how you do this and have done this repeatedly. You've started 5 or 6 companies now. What are some of the repeatable patterns that you look for when it comes to thinking about an idea, working through an idea, and finding out what idea you want to move forward with next?
Good. So I think whether you're a founder or you're thinking about starting a company, I think everything you should start and ask yourself 3 questions. Why this? Why now? Why me? Why this is a really simple thing. Ask yourself that, God forbid, I'm actually successful in solving the problem that I set out to solve. Let's assume you are successful. Would it help 1 billion people live a better life? 100 million people live a better life? 1 million people live a better life? And the reason is not because we are just philanthropic people. It is the most capitalistic thing to do. If you can build any product, any service that can help 1 billion people live a better life, you can create a $100 billion company. But you never want to wake up in the morning and say, what should I do to create a $100 billion company? Making money is simply a byproduct of doing things that improve people's lives. It's that simple, right? In other words, making money is like having an orgasm. If you focus on it, you're never going to get it, right? So any entrepreneur who starts a company to make money rarely, very rarely succeeds. The entrepreneurs succeed because they focus on solving the problem that actually makes someone's life better, right? They become your loyal customer. So that's the number one thing. Number two is the timing. Why now? So of all the different things you hear from people about why some people succeed and why some fail, it turns out there was a lot of research. I think Bill Gross published a paper on that. They looked at whether it's an extrovert, introvert, whether it's the skills of the founder. The number one predictor of success was timing. Right? Timing was the number one predictor of what actually when people succeed. So why did, if you look back and saying, why did Facebook succeed? They were not the first ones, right? You guys are too young to remember. There was something called before that, MySpace. Remember? You know what was before MySpace? Friendster, right? You know what was before Friendster? Whole bunch of personal home pages, right? So point was, they were too early. Uber couldn't have been created earlier, right? So all of these things are timing. So how do you know when the timing is right? So there are a couple of very easy things to do. You look at and saying, what changed in the last 2 or 3 years? More importantly, what do you expect to be changing in the next 3 to 5 years that will allow you to solve this problem at scale in 3 to 5 years, but could not have been solved 5 years ago? That means you're not looking at yesterday's technology to solve tomorrow's problem. And the reason that is, if you start to use something that could have been done 5, 10 years ago, by the time you're ready to scale, someone comes along, uses a completely new technology, and you're disrupted even before you got a chance to scale. Because you showed them where the path is, you showed them there is a market for it, and they came along and disrupted you completely because you were you weren't even using the latest cutting edge tech, right? So that's really important. The second part of this puzzle really is when you are an entrepreneur, this is one of the biggest fallacy, is people tend to focus on what they know. So when you're looking for a problem to solve, whatever that problem is, you break down the problems into what are the subset of problems that have to be solved for this big problem to be solved. And you never focus on how you're going to do something. You focus on what it is that needs to be done. The minute you focus on how, you completely miss out on every possible thing because you only will do things that you know. Because if you don't know how to do it, you say it can't be done, right? So you focus on what needs to be done, not how it's going to be done. So for example, you say, I want to live on Venus. You don't say, I don't think that's going to happen. You say, great, I want to live on Venus. What needs to happen for that to happen? You have to be able to leave Earth orbit, number one. Number two, you have to go from Earth orbit to Venus orbit. Number two, you have to land on Venus. Number three, and then you have to create a habitat on Venus to be able to live there. Number four, 4 problems, right? You say first problem is already solved. It's called rocket. And then you say second problem, we know how to do because we have built a horizon that goes beyond our solar system. Maybe we need to modify it to be able to take humans, but we know fundamental technology that is there. Landing on Venus. We have landed on Mars three different ways. We did the parachute, we did the bouncing ball, we did the crane, and maybe the atmosphere on Venus is slightly different than Mars, but we know this could be incremental problem, not is something completely new problem to be solved. And then you say, all right, there's only one problem that left to be solved, let me focus on that. Right? And that's how you find out what is it that you're going to be doing, what's incremental, what's already solved, and what someone else will solve it anyway by the time you're ready to scale. The last thing, the most important thing, if you can remember one thing, which is why me? Why me is, what question are you asking that are different from what everyone else is asking? The questions you ask are the problems you solve. Simply changing the question changes the problem, it changes the solution. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples of that because it's really key to why entrepreneurs succeed or fail. So, for example, if you say today there are 8 billion people on planet Earth, what if by 2050 we're going to have 20 billion people on planet Earth? How are we going to solve the world hunger? And everyone will tell you have to grow more food. That means you have to increase the yield of the crop. There's so much food that gets wasted during transportation. We have to figure out a way to transport food without wasting it. And they're going to talk about how to grow the food near where people live using vertical farming, aeroponics, agroponics, every type of hydroponics things. And no one ever asks the question, why do we eat food? When you ask the question, such a simple question, why do we eat food? You say we need energy and we need nutrition. What are the different ways can we get energy? And suddenly you wide open that problem to the solutions that were never available to you. I mean, think about it. We eat plants. How do plants get energy? They use radiation, carbon dioxide, create energy. Can we disintermediate that, and can we do the photosynthesis ourselves? Right? Point is, it doesn't matter. There are so many different ways. There are bacteria that live on radioactive nuclear waste. They're thriving in radioactive nuclear waste. That means they figured out how to protect their DNA from radiation and use radiation as a source of energy. Honey, do you want to go out and get some radiation? Instead of honey, you want to get some pizza. Right? Think about that. Just changing the questions allows you to look at the problem from very different perspective. And that's the key. How do you ask the right questions, right? Especially now. So if you go back and look at 2 decades ago, the most successful people were the ones that knew all the answers. All the experts, everybody, the people who had all the answers were successful. In the age of intelligence, it's not the person who has the right answers. Person who has the right questions. You can get all the answers from any LLM you want, but what questions would you be asking? And the questions you ask is how you understand what is the real problem you're trying to solve, right? So that is such a key, and I'll give you a whole bunch of examples if you want to go. The other part is, are you solving the symptom of the problem, or are you solving the root cause of the problem? Many of us, when they see a problem, we think, aha, that is the problem. And that is rarely the problem. So if you can act like a 2-year-old, which is ask anytime, it doesn't matter what someone says, what the 2-year-old says, but why? And you give them an answer, and you say, but why? And that is how entrepreneurs should be doing. When you can get to 2 or 3 whys, you got to the root cause of it. And I can give you many examples of how you get there. But that's really the framework that we use for every company. And I'm more than happy to actually ground it for you at my recent company, how I actually looked at all 3 things and how I did that. But let's just leave it there for that one. Next one.
Thank you. Let's double click on timing for a second, because with Viome particularly, you started when there wasn't necessarily a market for it. It wasn't known, there wasn't language, there wasn't any of this that existed in the consumer ideology or sentiment. How do you think about ideating through something that there isn't even a word for yet when precision nutrition and at-home testing didn't exist?
That's right. Oh God, I have to basically, I don't want you to think this is my pitch about Viome, so that's far from it. But I want to tell you about how I actually came to this idea. And in the why me, there's a second part that I did not tell you about that, because I thought he was going to tell me I'm just doing a keynote, not letting him ask the question. So I thought I'd let him ask the question, but I'll come back with it anyway. So the second part of it is just as important, why me? Ask yourself, what are you willing to die for? And then live for it. And the reason is, it's got to be meaningful to you. If you're going to dedicate 10, 15 years of your life to pursuing a dream that you want to solve, why does it matter to you? Because if it doesn't, the first hurdle you face is, not worth it, right? And then, or you just basically are playing the game. You become the person who says, my goal is to raise the seed funding. And when you raise the seed funding, what's my next goal? Raise the Series A. You got the Series A, what's my next goal? What do I have to do to raise Series B? I raise Series B, what can I do now to raise the Series C? And rather than saying, am I getting closer to my North Star? Why do I do what I do? And here is how you know what you are doing is right or wrong. This is really simple. When you wake up in the morning, hopefully you wake up at 4 a.m. just like I do. But irrespective, even if you wake up at 5 a.m., are you jumping out of the bed or you're still lying in the bed for a few more minutes after you wake up? If you're not jumping out of the bed, you should quit whatever it is that you're doing because that's not your calling. The minute you find something that is worth doing, there is not a chance you would be lying in the bed and still thinking about what to do in life. That's lawyers, they always call you. They're just trying to get the buck out. So the point I'm trying to make is find something that is so meaningful to you that you're willing to absolutely commit your life to it. And it is something that you would die for, right? Because that is what allows you to pursue something and go through the wall, under the wall, around the wall, over the wall. You will get through it because it means something to you. Now, to answer your question, so here I was, building a company called Moon Express to mine the moon for helium-3 to build the fusion reactors. Go figure. Right. Now, here it is. We became the first company ever to get permission to leave Earth orbit. So if you Google the first company to get permission to leave Earth orbit, we were it. Next question was, law says that every planet, all the terrestrial bodies are the property of humanity, and no nation and no one can own it. I'm thinking, so I'm going to go there and mine, and I bring back the helium, and everybody looks at me and says, thank you, it's all ours now. That doesn't work. So we had to get the law changed, and President Obama signed into the law in 2015 that says Space Resource Act, that anything we bring back, we get to own it, right? Good. Then we became one of the 6 companies to get $2.6 billion NASA contract to mine the moon. And you would think I would be at top of the moon, right? And then my dad was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. I didn't even know he was sick, let alone he has a stage 4 cancer. He was given a few months to live, and unfortunately, that's all he got. And it really got me thinking that here I am thinking that I can build a multi-planetary society and do these things, and right on planet Earth, your loved ones and our fellow humans are suffering and dying. And I say, screw that. I'm going to go focus on this problem now. Now, the problem wasn't, so here is how I came to this conclusion. I'm thinking, it wasn't the cancer that killed him. I was absolutely convinced that it's the last straw. Every one of us heard the thing that says it's the last straw that broke the camel's back. And many of us are smart enough to figure out it's never the last straw. It's all the other straws before that actually breaks the camel's back, right? So I'm start thinking, oh my God, I've been just taking it for granted that as he's getting old, of course he's got diabetes. He's got to take his metformin. Of course he's got high blood pressure. He's taking his blood pressure medicine. Of course he's got high cholesterol. He's going to be taking his statin, right? And he has got these 10, 20 drugs, and he's old. He's got to take the drugs, right? And then I realized, is there something in the human body that says, gee, you turned 40, start getting this disease. You turned 45, got a new disease for you. You turned 50, I got another disease for you. And there was nothing that I could imagine that human biology would behave that way. So my first thing was, this is how everything, so I'm going to give you one more framework, and then I'm going to come back and will answer your question, is there are 2 most powerful words in the English language. One is called imagine. And here's why. When I say imagine, all of your preconceived ideas, all of your thoughts go away. You're willing to now give me that chance. What do you want me to imagine? Right? That means you are able to now look at the new things in a new perspective. Now, all that means is I have to now tell you something that you can clearly visualize with your eyes closed. You can imagine it. And what happens is many entrepreneurs have this idea of what's our company's vision? It's not visual. It is like, I want to build the greatest, largest company that has $1 billion revenue and 100,000 customers that is doing this and this. It's like, excuse me, that is not a vision. Who can visualize that? You know what the vision looks like? Dr. Martin Luther King. He says, imagine a world where a black man is holding the hand of a white girl walking together. You can close your eyes, you can visualize it in just 30 seconds, what he meant. That is the kind of vision a company needs to have. It is so clear when you tell someone what is it that you are doing, they can close their eyes and say, I can't wait for that world. Right? The second part that comes down to the execution part for entrepreneurship. And it starts with the word, what if? What if is how you find out how you're going to solve this problem. What is this problem that you're trying to solve? And that is, what if? What if, in my case, was what if we can actually understand what changes in the human biology at the onset and during the progression of any of these chronic diseases? What if we can find out what's changing? Because if we can diagnose the disease early, prevent them from happening, and God forbid, outright reverse them using food and lifestyle as a medicine. And we say, wow, if we can do that, would it help 1 billion people? And answer is 8 billion of us. Check mark that. Good. Then the next question was, why now? And we said, look, to solve this problem, the 3 things must happen. You have to digitize the human body. You have to process this massive amount of data that's coming out of the sequencing. And then you have to have an AI that's powerful enough to be able to analyze all of that stuff. None of that stuff, 10 years ago, you would have said is crazy idea. So we are looking at the stuff and saying cost of sequencing, as gentleman tell you, he's doing a whole genomics, Kevin. It was several $1,000s. And we all looked at each other and said, you can't help 1 billion people when you're spending $2,000 doing a sequencing. But we're looking at the stuff and saying, look, it used to be billions, millions, tens of thousands, and coming down in 3 to 5 years, this thing is going to plummet down to under $100. And we say, wow. And today, with some fancy techniques, we are able to do that for $4.73. Now, next thing was, how would we process this massive amount of data that we're going to get out of the body? We thought we would never have access to supercomputer, but there are cloud computing. So we fired it up. Cost me $47 to process the data. Took a deep breath, that's a lot of money. And we looking at the stuff and cost, the processors are getting faster and faster. Storage is getting cheaper and cheaper. This thing should be down to $10 in 3 to 5 years. It's 90 cents now. Right? And we all at that point believed that AI is going to get better and better and more powerful. Time to start is now. So we did that. Next part was the most important part, which is why me. Now, as you can possibly imagine, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, and I'm trying to solve the problem of human biology. And interesting thing is I don't even remember anything about that, and since the 10th grade I remembered. But I'm pretty smart to ask really dumb questions. And we noticed that everyone, and Kevin, with all the forgiveness, I'm going to come back to it in a second. We noticed that everyone in the industry was focused on wanting to understand your genes and your DNA. And what occurred to me was, wow, that's really interesting. However, your DNA doesn't change when you become sick. So if you do my DNA test today, and God forbid I gain 200 pounds, and you can do my DNA test all over again, it's the same. And then I become diabetic. You can do my DNA again, I'm still the same DNA. Then I have a heart disease, and then I become depressed, and then I have anxiety, and then I die. And even after I die, 100 years later, 1,000 years later, you exhume my body and get my DNA all over again. You know what? It's still the same. DNA can't even tell you you're dead or alive, let alone are you healthier or sicker. So if I give you DNA of someone, you couldn't tell me the person is dead or alive. Think about that for a second. So how could it possibly tell you you're getting healthier or sicker? So we said, wow, that's a problem. So what does change? What changes in your body is not your DNA, but your RNA, your gene expression. So your genes that's expressed are constantly changing, not the genes themselves. So now I have no idea what gene expression means. it occurred to me, look at every part of your body is identical DNA. Remember the crime shows? Take your hair, it's the same DNA. Your skin has the same DNA. Your heart has the same DNA. Any tissue in your body, your neurons to your kidney to liver, same DNA. Why don't I have the eyes growing on my fingers and the nails growing on my head? Same DNA. It's because different genes are expressed, they become nail. Different genes become expressed, they become eyes. Different genes become expressed. So everything is all about expression. So your genes are like an alphabet, and RNA is a story you write. So what story are you writing? And people told me, RNA can't be sequenced, you must be nutcase. No one has done it. But as an entrepreneur, I didn't ask how we're going to do that. We simply said, what problem has to be solved? And here's one problem. What's the second problem? Well, 99% of all the genes that are expressed in our body don't come from our mom and dad. Really? So where do they come from? They come from microbiome in your gut, in your mouth, all over us. 100 trillion microbes producing 2 million to 20 million genes compared to 22,000 protein coding genes in the human DNA. And first I'm thinking, why do I care? In those days, there is no ChatGPT, so you go to Dr. Google. So I went to Dr. Google, and I start typing the names of the disease and gut microbiome. So it says Parkinson's and microbiome. It starts in the gut 15 years before you see the symptom. I'm thinking, whatever. And Alzheimer's and microbiome, cancer therapy and microbiome, diabetes and microbiome, pick a name you want. Everything is connected to this damn microbiome. I can't figure out what the hell this microbiome is. In my mind, it's really simple. They're tiny, tiny humans. Don't ask me how I come up with these pictures, but in my mind, they're tiny, tiny humans living inside me, doing things that I don't like yet. And I thought, my God, this is it. Then I noticed there are tens of companies in the marketplace doing microbiome testing. Then why is this problem not solved yet? So I kept thinking, my God, there's got to be something I'm missing here. So I went back to my first principle. What questions are these microbiome companies asking? And it turns out they do exactly the same thing. They do the DNA of microbiome, metagenomics. And they tell you which organisms are in your gut. You got Akkermansia, you got C. diff, you got E. coli, you got this, and they give you all the fancy names. And I keep thinking, wait a second, it doesn't matter what the names are, because just like human beings, if these things in good environment will do good behavior, in bad environment do bad behavior. So it's not who they are, but what they are actually doing and expressing is what's going to change how human health matters. And that was all I knew, that's all we have to do is understand what these microbes are producing and expressing, what human genes expression, your mitochondria, your immune system, and we could take all of this information and we could solve this problem. When I thought we could, and I went to, I thought it would be an easy problem. I went to Stanford, MIT, I went to Lawrence Berkeley, Lawrence Livermore, I went to NASA. I'm thinking someone had to have solved this problem. I can't be the first guy thinking about it. Couldn't find anyone who was doing it. I found myself at Los Alamos National Lab now. You know what they're famous for? Sir? Nuclear bombs, sir. There you go. They're famous for destroying humanity as many times as you want. What could you think they might be working on next? The biological stuff, of course. Now, they tell me they were working on a biological defense project. I'm sure they are. Now, imagine the problem they're trying to solve is identical. If there was a biological terror in our great country, how would we protect ourselves? They couldn't care what was in the biological bomb. We would never know. What matters is what these organisms were expressing inside the human body, how it is interacting with our immune system so they can create antidote for it. And I looked at that thing, I'm thinking, aha, that's it. And we ended up hiring the guy who developed the things. And someday I'll tell you more story about how to get something they won't even tell me what they are working on. So here's what happened. I told the people, this is a problem I'm trying to solve. And one scientist come to me and say, I know exactly how to do it. And I say, what project are you working on? And you know what he asked me? He said, what's your security clearance level? And before I could answer, he says, even if you told me you work for CIA, I can tell you that your security clearance is not large enough for me to tell you what I'm working on. So I asked him out of curiosity, what security clearance level do I need for you to tell me that? He said, fact, you're asking me that, you don't even have the right security clearance to know. So I'm thinking, the guy is a complete bullshitter. But nonetheless, you know what I did? And I said, young man, I'm a US citizen. Every single dime you spend on this, whatever project you're working on, is my taxpayer money. Don't need to know what you're working on. But you do get to tell me how it is that you do it. And then he walked me through what he does. I simply took a note because I don't understand anything he's saying, but I'm a really good note taker. I didn't have AI at that time, but I'm a really good note taker. And then I took that thing and I went to Lawrence Berkeley and I told the scientists, I think I figured this thing one out. And they start laughing at me. So you figured it out? I said, absolutely. And I said, first you do this and then you do this. And I read him the whole thing. And the guy thinks about it, say, that will work. And I'm thinking, this guy knows what he's doing. Anyway, long story short, a brown guy who's an immigrant who they won't talk to managed to get an exclusive perpetual license, hired that guy, and he's my chief science officer, hired the head of IBM Watson Research to do the AI for me, and then we built this company. Now, think about it. That's all. So how did it all start? 10 years later, we have done 2 million tests, 400 quadrillion biological data points. And today, we can analyze your body. You give us your spit of your saliva, touch of your stool, finger prick blood. We analyze 100 million biomarkers in your body. We tell you which food to eat, why you should eat it, and a science paper of why. What food not to eat, why, and a science paper for it. Every single nutrient your body needs, we tell you what you need, what quantity, and we custom make it for you. And then we did the double-blinded placebo-controlled studies that shows in 90 days, your A1C came down by 0.42. If you had IBS, which is 15% of us suffer from constipation, we showed 68% of the people became healthy in 90 days compared to 11% on placebo. If you had depression and anxiety, 57% of the people became healthy compared to 28% on placebo. All using food, personalized food, and supplements. That's it. So imagine, I knew nothing about it, yet able to solve this problem. And that is what entrepreneurship is all about. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need to know anything. You have to ask the right questions, and you go out and pursue that dream.
Health is an interesting sector in and of itself, and you touched on it there. It's because the vast majority of people who enter the space do so because of a personal loss or some type of personal experience because of it. Yeah. My mom, in much the same way, stage 4 pancreatic and passed, was an athlete, ran a race for her 48th birthday. Crossed the finish line, thought she hurt her back in the race, and it led to a 3-month.
So let me give you some good news then. So in the next 30 days, we are launching for the first time in human history, stage 1 pancreatic cancer test. Using all the data that we collected, we are able to detect stage 1 pancreatic cancer test, 94% specificity, 88% sensitivity for stage 1. We can do stage 1 oral cancer, stage 1 throat cancer, IBD, and we are validating our test for colon polyps, which is 6 to 10 years before you develop a colon cancer. So if we can do that, we can eliminate the colon cancer from the face of this earth. Right? Pancreatic cancer in stage 1 is always curable. Right? Think about it. So,
Yeah. And then you go from an 80% survival rate over 5 years, what was normally 3 in the past.
that's right.
How do you think about, in a market as saturated as health, about building consumer trust?
Wow. So actually, how many people care about the healthcare business here? Because I don't want to take away so much time talking about what I'm doing, but I want to focus on how can I be most helpful to you guys. I want to keep it, I'm happy to by then answer the question how you do that, but I really was thinking, are there specific things that are on your mind about how to think about the problems that you face in any industry and how to think about that problem completely differently than you have been thinking about? How do you disrupt the foundation of everything that experts have taken it for granted? How do you look at the things differently, and how do you think about helping massively, right? Rather than doing something small. It's okay to start small, but you have to have a vision that says this is where we get there. And the way you do that is to find your moonshot is a 2-step process, or it's multi-step process. So you ask yourself, whatever it is that you're doing, you're successful in doing that. What would the world look like? And then, what would you do? What problem would you solve in that world? And you say, now, if I have solved that problem, what would the world look like? What would you do then? And then you say, now I'm going to solve that problem. And then you say, what would the world look like? And then you describe that world and say, my vision is to create that world. And here's how I'm going to get there. First, I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to do this, and that's my world. So you describe that vision even though you're doing this. When we started our company, we started with simply analyzing your gut, your stool test. We didn't say, Viome is your stool test company. You know what we said? On day one, imagine living in a world where illness is optional, where illness is a matter of your choices you make every day, not a matter of bad luck. On day one. Because we knew as soon as we solve this, I'm going to go to look at the saliva, then I'm going to look at the blood. I knew what needed to be done. So I was able to describe this world even though we were doing this. So think about what is it that you're doing and then describe this world. Because if you tell someone this is what you do, people say, it's too small a market. Don't care. It's not worth it. Nobody wants to fund it. Nobody wants to join. It is so much easier to build a company that is big and audacious than to build a company that is small. Why do you think Elon is able to raise $2 trillion valuation for a company that makes $18 billion revenue? It's not because what he does today. It is what he thinks he's going to do someday in the future, right? And that is the point, is describe what that world is, because that's what paying for, not what you do today. And every entrepreneur in their presentation I see, they talk about what they do and the KPIs of what they do, instead of focusing on what that world is they're trying to create and why.
Let's open it up to some questions here in a second, but the last one for you.
Yeah.
Talk about world building. 5 years from now, we're back here.
Yeah.
What exists? What does that future state look like that you're working towards today?
So, it's not me. What every entrepreneur should be building towards is a world where there is a tremendous amount of joy in that world. So, and happiness is something that is transient. When something happens, you may be happy for a second. Someone says, I love you. You may be happy for that minute. And they say, oh my God, I hate you. You may be unhappy. But happiness is transient, but joy is internal. Can you find that joy and the bliss that comes only from inside you? And you want to create that joy and bliss in every fellow human that you have. So to me, 5 years from now, I want every one of us to be focused on not what's in it for me. Ask yourself, what can I do for someone else? What can I do for everyone, all of my fellow humans? How can I change the trajectory of how humanity is going to live? Bring the joy in everyone's life. And my only other things I can give you as a life lesson. By the way, I'm turning 67 soon, right? So to me, I got a lot of life I have lived, and there are a lot of wisdom I have lived. Biologically, by the way, I just did my biological age test. It went down from 38 down to 30 now. So as of last week, my biological age is down to 30, right? So feeling good about life. I'm healthier today at 67 than I was when I was 40. Right, so it's just really amazing that there is no age you can start your health journey and not be healthier. Body is extremely adaptive. I'll be more than thrilled to tell you all the things that you could do to live healthier and longer. Now, the last part is just my wisdom is, when something happens in life, don't assign a label to it. Don't say, this is good or this is bad. The minute you assign label to something, your mind automatically changes. Oh my God, something bad happened. And now your whole thought process, mind basically saying, remember that, don't ever do that again. And it basically starts to say, how do I protect myself? And creates that pattern that will never change again. Every time, whatever happens, your job is simply say, so it happened. Universe is my friend. Whatever is happening is for my good. And move on. Right? Not good, not bad. Same thing as an entrepreneur, just to put it in the perspective. Don't ever think something is a success or a failure. Everything you do, think of it as an experiment. In experiment, there is an outcome A and there is an outcome B. Not a success and a failure. When A happens, you do C. When B happens, you do D. The minute you assign them label, you say, oh my God, I failed, now what do I do? No, you did a great experiment that gave you an outcome, and based on that outcome, you know exactly what to do next. And based on that outcome, it doesn't matter it's A or B, you know what to do next. This is what Thomas Edison said. When someone asked me, sir, did you not fail 10,000 times before you invented the light bulb? He said, nope. He said, I learned 10,000 experiments that did not work is what is allowed me to actually create the thing that actually works. Right? So don't think when people say, oh, aren't you afraid to fail? You only fail in life when you give up. Everything else is simply an experiment. So there you have it.
Let's take 2 or 3 questions. You covered everything that anyone needed to know.
All right. Well, first of all, I want to thank you.
So, startups have different phases. Every day things change. How do we navigate where what looks like an opportunity now, make your plans with that, and then things change? And how do we keep that active, productive,
Yeah, so
happening more?
yeah, so I think the question, I don't know if you all hear the question, right? Okay, so the question really was that, hey, you have a startup company, you see the opportunity, and as you are going down the path, things are constantly changing, and what do you do now? Because right? So first thing is focus. So you have to focus not on the implementation, but is the problem gone away or not, right? So you focus on saying, what problem am I trying to solve? And does that problem still exist? And if the problem still exists, now you're simply saying there may be a different way of solving that problem, but rather than the problem has gone away. 90% of the time, it's not the problem that goes away. The way you're solving may be actually obsolete, right? So the thing is, you have to constantly adapt how you get there as long as you keep your eye on the North Star. What's your purpose is. And most entrepreneurs think the thing they're doing next month is the purpose, that is the goal. And that is why they say, oh my God, what do I know? Now that's not happening. Because that is just a stepping stone. It doesn't matter. You see a North Star there. Just because it moves there, you say, I don't know what to do now. You know exactly what to do. You change. So.
How do you differentiate between beneficial delusion and harmful delusion in this path of let's make it big and everything's going to be great?
So, remember what I said. The delusion is not about can you get there. You're saying is here is the world you're describing, but you're not executing on that. You're taking a slice of it and say, I'm going to start this here, then I'm going to build this thing here, then I'm going to build this here, and that's how I'm going to cover this. The way I'm going to boil the ocean is one bucket at a time. So you're still doing the things that you need to do, but you have a clear vision of why you're doing it. So anytime the opportunity comes up, you look and saying, does it help me get there? And I can give you a very good example of it. So all of you now know I do RNA sequencing, right? During COVID, COVID was an RNA virus. We saw it before it was a name. We're starting to see this damn virus coming along, and we say, oh my God, this seems like just like a SARS virus. And we're like, oh my God. And everyone said, you have a perfect opportunity to do a COVID test because you guys do this all day long, every day. You should pivot and do COVID test. I asked myself, maybe we can make a lot of money doing it, but does it help me do what I've set out to do, which is to understand how human biology is changing when people develop these diseases? It doesn't. So we didn't spend 1 second even thinking about that. We continue moving forward during COVID. Instead of gut company, we launched the blood thing, then we launched the saliva thing, and we launched a personalized supplement. We just kept moving forward. And today, because of that, we have 2 million tests done. We have the largest database on humanity because we stayed on our mission, and that's what allowed us to now do these stage 1 pancreatic cancer tests, stage 1 these tests, right? Is knowing that you can't just simply change every time you see something new, shiny object comes up. And that is the trick, is to don't distract yourself with the latest shiny object. People like in the saying, oh my God, NFT is hot, I'm doing NFT. How do I do my NFT now, right? My God, blockchain is hot, the AI is hot, how do I? No. These things are all tools in your tool chest. How do you apply these tools? Remember, never forget why you're doing it. Yes. I think I mostly understand what you're asking. You say, how do you ask the right question? And how do you convince the investor that this is worthwhile? Am I hearing you right, sir? Okay. So essentially, one of the things is you have to, so let me rephrase. So one thing is intellectual curiosity. So I read a lot. I read at least 4 books every month. And I probably spend 2 to 3 hours reading and listening to things outside the industry. And here is why. Because when you are listening to the things on nanotechnology one day and the quantum computing the next day, and you're looking at every single possible things out there that's happening, in the beginning, you start to look like these are all separate things, and then you start to see the pattern, and you can start to see how these things are connected, and you start to see, oh my God, the problem that was unsolvable now actually could be solved when you move the atoms using nanotechnology here to here and using quantum computing and AI to be able to do this. The problem is actually solvable, and you know exactly where things are in the lab, what's coming out in the next 3 to 5 years. So I read a whole bunch of science paper to see what is it that's happening in the academia. So what's really interesting is, when I looked at the gut microbiome, the reason I realized it is going to be the next big thing, so it's not like I have a crystal ball. It's really interesting ways of doing it. I started to see how many papers were being published. 10 years ago, there were, people with 100 papers, and suddenly next year, there were 500 papers, 2,000 papers. I'm thinking there's so much research that's coming out. It is going to be in the next 3 to 5 years, it's going to become completely mainstream. And guess what? After we started, 5 years later, Lady Gaga was talking about microbiome. Right? And it wasn't because I had a crystal ball. To me, it's very clear when you start to see a lot of push in the area, a lot of research, you know it's going to become mainstream soon.
Probably time for 2 more. Last one.
So, thank you for what you've done. So we live in a system of illness and medicine, right? It's a $5 trillion system, right? And you solve such a tough problem, and actually it is the only problem to solve for us as humanity. How do we bring it into that system so that we don't have to be sick to be feeling good and go to a doctor? And I think you are the right person to answer that question. How do we bring it into the system?
So, our medical industrial complex, the only industry in the world where they wake up every day and hope their customer is unhappy. They hope and pray that your customer is never happy, because the day you become happy is the day they become unhappy, right? They make money every time you are sick, and they make no money when you are healthy. So whole system is designed. The incentives, it's not the people are bad. It's not the doctors are bad human beings. The incentives are aligned to only make money when you are sick. In fact, the saddest thing is, I was talking to the CEO of a very large hospital, and I'm telling him that I have developed the thing where I can predict that in the next 6 to 12 months, somebody's going to develop these 25 most common diseases. I have all the data that can, and we published a paper on that. That here are the 25 most common diseases we can predict when you're going to develop them. And he says, I don't care. What do you mean you don't care? He says, there is no billing code for it. He said, wait until you develop a disease, I can bill for it. What am I going to bill for? So point is the whole system. You would think your insurance company would want you to be healthy. You think so, right? Because they're paying for it. We get insurance from our employer. Every 2 years, 3 years, employer changes the insurance company. And they're thinking, why would I spend money keeping him healthy? It's going to benefit someone else. They don't care about you. In fact, the worst case is insurance companies have to give out 85% of the money they collect in the premium back to the pool. So the sicker you are, the more they spend, the more money they make. I mean, there's nobody in the system wants you to be healthy. And only person who doesn't want to be sick is the person who is sick. Right? So the point is, ultimately, consumerization of healthcare is really where the whole industry is headed. And that's why you're seeing more and more concierge doctor, longevity medicine, where people are doing cash pay. People are saying, I will pay myself to be healthy because I'm tired, because my doctor is not going to do it. You go to that doctor, they do a blood test looking for 10 things, right? You can go do the 500 blood biomarkers today for yourself and pay for it, right? That is where the world is going to go. You know, you saw that consumerization of travel, consumerization of all other things are happening, and that's the same way you see consumerization of healthcare, where consumers are going to become the CEO of their own health, and they're going to use the AI to actually become their own doctor. I know more about my health than my doctor. I saw my doctor this morning, and she has no idea what I'm talking about. And I showed her that in a Gemini, with all my reports, here is the thing, and she said, oh, this is really interesting. It's like, really? That's my point. So we can now do our own tests and use AI to be able to diagnose ourselves better than most doctors would, because they spend 5 minutes with you, and I got 24 hours to think about it.
Guys,
Thank you.
round of applause for Naveen.
Thank you.
That was absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for being with us, Naveen. My takeaway is the only constraint that we have on the impact that we can have in this world and what we can accomplish with the companies that you guys are building is the questions that you ask and the problems that you seek to solve. So, I mean, that was personally super inspiring to me, and I don't know about you guys, but I'm super just happy and energetic, and thank you so much, Naveen. Let's give him one more round. We're going to have a little bit of time for some networking here. We've got 20 minutes. They have another event, and then we got to be out of here. So we're going to do, speed networking. If you want to meet people, let's go. And just to close it off, at OneSixOne, we have a mantra that we've said since day one, which is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So let's go meet some people. Let's see how we can create value for other people, and let's make it happen.